Welcome. Welcome. Chapter 7, Public Key Infrastructure. So what are we going to be looking at today? What is a public key infrastructure? We're going to call it PKI. Components of it, fundamentals, applications, and some processes. So basically just a general overview of what it's used for in cryptology. So what is a public key infrastructure, a system that provides safe and secure communication over a secure medium, whatever that medium may be. Validation of credentials, digital signatures, and it's a combination of hardware, software, and policies. So a lot goes into creating a public key infrastructure. So a certificate of authority. The entity responsible for enrollment, creation, management, and validation of and digital certificate. Registration authority. The entity responsible for accepting information about the party wishing to obtain a certificate. Application or certificates that have been revoked prior to their assigned expiration and published. Digital certificate, a piece of information, much like a driver's license in the real world, that is used to positively prove the identity of the person, party, computer, or service. And a certificate distribution system, a combination of software, hardware, services, procedures used to distribute certificates. So that's what we're going to be looking at. So just a quick review. Symmetric, and that converts clear text to ciphertext. It has a very specific key, and you must have that key in order to decrypt it. And all parties must have the key no matter where they are. So you share that key. Some of the keys that we've spoken about in the past, the 3DES, Advanced Encryption Service, AES, Blowfish, International Data Encryption Algorithms, the RC4, RC5, and RC6. These are some that have been used in the past, so we're going to just keep kind of going along with it. The asymmetric, these are public and private keys. Public key for crypto systems, and one key held in secret, the others in public. So if you remember a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Diffie and Hillman. They developed this in 1976. The process is enabled to exchange key information over insecure mediums. We looked at RSA. So these are just some of the things that we've been able to use. Since that, we've been able to use it. And we also spoke last week about hashing. Hashing is a one-way function. It verifies the integrity of the files of fixed length. If you remember, we looked at that no matter whether we were converting Superman or to file or picture. It was 128-bit, it was 32 characters, always the same. It is one way in the fact that I can never go back from my information, my hashed information, back to my original document because it's a mathematical thing that always comes out the same. So hashing is what we're going to use. Some of the hashing methods, message MD2, MD4, and MD5. So we looked at that also. Havel, variable length, and the secure hash. So these are just some of the things that we had looked at, and it's just a quick review. So we're going to look at digital certificates. Basically, we're going to look at the three parts of it: the identity of it, the authority of it, and how it secures confidential information. So the identity is the binding of the public key to a party, such as an individual, organization, or any other entity that needs to prove identity. Authority, a list of actions that the holder of the certificate is allowed to exercise, much like a driver's license authorizes an individual to operate the motor vehicle. And secure confidentiality, used to keep information private and safe from unauthorized things. So that's what the digital certificate does. What is the certificate authority? It's just a third party that is responsible for issuing, managing, identifying, and revoking certificates as necessary, as enrolled in parties for their own certificate. And this is kind of how it works. Basically, it's going to request. The request is received from you. Background information is requested and validated. The information is provided by a requester is applied. The hashes that certificate, issuing the CA, signs and the certificate with the private keys. Requesters the information that the certificate is ready for pickup, and requesters install the certificate on their computer, and then they're ready to go. So different roles of the certification authority. Generation of the key pair and public keys are private. The CA will generate a digital certificate from any authorized party when requested. This certificate will be generated after validation identity of the requesting party. They also will generate certificates. In the certificate, the CA generates certificate for any authorized party request. It will be generated in the identity requesting party. Publishing the public key. The public key is placed upon the bound to each digital certificate as both are generated. Anyone who trusts the CA or requests the public key will, in practice, get the key in their use. They will also validate certificates. When a certificate is presented by one party to another, it must be validated. Because both parties involved typically do not know each other, they must rely on a third party who trusted this role. And the revocation of certificates. If a certificate is no longer needed or trusted, it can be revoked before it expires. This is much like when you get your driver's license and you have an expiration date. The CA is just a third party intermediary that allows knowing people to work together. Here's a video on basic how it's going to work.
The use of a certificate authority is what builds the trust inside of our browser when it begins encrypting data to a third-party website. That's the thing that we want to watch for whenever we're sending encrypted information, that we're not only protecting the data, but we really are exchanging that encrypted data with the right person on the other end. And it's these certificate authorities that allows us to do this. The way that this works is that if you need a certificate, you go to any one of these certificate authorities. And if you were to look at your browser, you would see behind the scenes listed in all of the certificates is all of these CAs that your browser trusts. So if I go to any one of these CAs and I ask them to provide me with a certificate, they will digitally sign it and send it to me. I go through this process of creating a key pair. I send my public key to any one of these CAs. They then confirm that it's really me. They go through a verification process. Then they digitally sign it and send it back to me. That means that anybody who then hits my web server can see that it has been digitally signed by a certificate authority that is already trusted inside of the browser. There's also a number of different trust levels that the CA can provide. You'll notice when you go to some websites that your browser bar will turn green. And other websites, it turns green and gives you additional verification options. So the CAs can give you, of course, different types of certificates back that provide more and more and more security. And they usually will step through a number of different checks to make sure that the person who's receiving the certificate really is the person on the name of the certificate. If you're an organization that has a lot of internal servers that you would like to be able to encrypt data back and forth, you may not want to go to an external certificate authority and have to pay them every time you want a certificate. Instead, you may want to build all of your certificates in-house, and you would do that by creating your own certificate authority. You would simply set up a certificate authority server in your organization, and you would sign all of your internal private keys. The other side of this, of course, is that you have to take the certificate authority information and install that or push that out onto all of the desktops who will be accessing those servers, so that they will trust the servers just as they trust servers that have been signed from commercial certificate authorities. Generally, you're configuring and setting this all up with things like Microsoft certificate servers or OpenCA. There are a lot of different ways to build your own certificate authorities in-house. And if you have a lot of servers and you need to provide that level of encryption with those certificates, then you can save a lot of money doing this in-house rather than going outside to a commercial certificate authority.
So that was just an overview of certificate authorities. As I said, it's a third party that allows us to have information, to share information with someone else. They kind of take control of it. So some basic key management. We're going to look at the creation, usage, change, distribution, storage, recovery, escrow, and zeroization. Creation. Basically, it's automated key generation. It is truly random, has a suitable length, keys encrypting keys. So you have double encryption going on there. It really allows us to have that information. Key usage. Management has vested interest in what activities or content may be hidden, protecting this. They may create a policy. So as we mentioned, the KPI, it's a combination of software, hardware, and policies. So management is creating these policies for how we're going to encrypt and decrypt data. So this way, everyone will be doing it the same. Key change expiry. In any environment, plans should be made to update keys periodically. Generating systematic keys is easy, but delivering them expensive since you have that. So think of it this way. How often do you have to change your password? It's the same thing. The keys have to be changed to make sure that if nothing happens to them or anything like that. As you can see here, how much traffic is it used? How much traffic over time? How long has it been in use? If these things are overused, your key could be violated. So you need to have these keys changed periodically. Like I said, just like your password. The distribution of them. Out-of-band public key encryption, secret key construction, secret key delivery, key distributor centers, and certificates. These are just some of the areas that we need to look about when we're going to be giving out the key KPI to other vendors. Storage. Well, where are they trusted? What about smart cards? These things are used. It helps people get into the information. Smart cards are a good thing to keep security, especially on a VPN like we talked about. Recovery. Split knowledge and multiple part key recovery. These are just more parts of it. Escrow is a process, mechanism, or entity that can recover lost or destroyed cryptographic keys. So if something happens to a key, we're able to recover it. Think of it as a backup. Key escrows are typically made of 3 components. A user component that handles the generation, an escrow component that saves the key, and a recovery component for the restoration. So as you can see, you can recover if you do lose your key. Law enforcement issues. Commonly available commercial and open source encryption can hinder law enforcement. If you think about last year, we had the terrorist attack in California, and the law enforcement wanted to get into the iPhone. Apple would not support it, so they had to figure out how to get into it themselves to make sure that, hey, this is it. The company Apple wanted to keep it to knowing that its customers were safe no matter what they did. And this ensures a key is prevented and disclosed, especially when equipment is discarded or stolen. And this allows us to cancel everything so nothing can get into it. The PKI infrastructure binds people and entities to the public keys. Public keys are published in certificates by digital certificates, cross-certification, certification. And this is kind of a process. We start over the version of it. We go to serial number, the algorithm, how it was issued. It will be checked. The subject to public key. Is the issuer unique key subject? And the last is the digital signature. So the certification, trust and trust models. So the certification, trust and trusted models. Certification establishes trustworthy of public keys. Certification authority, certification policy, certification practice and statement, registration authorities, and a validation of certification path. These are some of the things that are used with the public key infrastructure. So what we covered, the PK is a management system. PKI used to issue the management certificates. Digital certificates are credentials used to identify. Think of it as a driver's license. Some basic components. It's a combination of hardware, software, and policy. and PKI-aware applications can interact with PK. So that is this week's lecture. Have a great week.